Hello and welcome to today's webinar on digital parenting. My name's Wendy MacLeod and I am one of the community outreach managers. I work across schools in London and the East of England. And in this webinar, we're going to be discussing issues surrounding being a digital parent, social media apps, supporting parents, supporting children, particularly during this period of lockdown. And we're going to finish up by looking at some of the resources that are available to you. Joining me this morning, we have 4 fantastic panelists, and I'm going to introduce them to you now. First of all, we have Sarah Smith, who is representing the Breck Foundation. Sarah has been working for the Breck Foundation for 2 years. First as a volunteer coordinator and then as a speaker. Her role is to go into schools and she presents to all ages from 4 upwards about the dangers of online grooming and how to stay safe in our digital world. She came to work for the foundation after she saw them present at her son's junior school. She had a passion for video games when she was a girl, so she feels like she really understands the draw of online gaming and social media for young people nowadays. Also on the panel, Samantha Marks. Sam is an education manager in CEOP education team at the National Crime Agency. The National Crime Agency is committed to protecting the public from serious and organised crime. CEOP's role is to tackle sexual abuse and exploitation of children, both online and offline. Online safety has been a part of Sam's role for over 10 years, working in the charity and youth sector with organisations like the Scouts, NSPCC and UK Safer Internet Centre. She's also worked in schools with local authority staff, parents and directly with children and young people. Our next panelist is Andrew Williams, and he is from the UK Safer Internet Centre. He's an experienced educator with over 10 years primary experience in 2 key stages. He's held roles at all levels of school management in Essex and Herefordshire. Andrew is passionate about the use of technology in schools and supporting young children, young people and adults with online safety and data protection issues. Our final panelist is Carolyn Bunting from Internet Matters. Carolyn has led Internet Matters since its launch by founding members BT, Sky, TalkTalk and Virgin Media. Since then, its resources have become essential advice for parents and education professionals. She is passionate about encouraging industry to collaborate to address this challenging societal issue with Google, BBC, Facebook and Samsung among the many companies who have become members of Internet Matters. Carolyn sits on the executive board of the UK Council for Internet Safety with Internet Matters, leading the working group for vulnerable users. Waiting in the wings is my colleague Tim Wilson, who is also a community outreach manager covering the Midlands. And Tim is going to be keeping an eye on your questions this morning. So if you have any questions for our panelists, please put them into the questions section and we'll try to bring as many of your questions to our panelists as we go along. Right, okay, we're going to get started. So the first section that we're going to be discussing is being a digital parent. Our webinar is called Digital Parenting, but how can a parent be great at digital parenting? And we're going to go to Sam for that first question. Okay, we've lost Sam with the sound at the moment. Okay, no problem. I'm going to read Sam's answer. So we've been having a few technical issues as Sam tries to sort that out. I'm going to read what her response to that is. So Sam says, chatting little and often. This is one of the best ways you can protect your child is by having a positive relationship with them around their life online. Talking to them regularly, not just once, is key. and having that ongoing conversation so it becomes part of your family life. Also talking to
Wendy, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, yes.
Yay!
Okay, carry
thank
on.
you. See, it's always good to be prepared, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And we also say that it's really important to explain any worries you may have. So I think being honest with your children about kind of what you're worried about, what you've heard, maybe you've heard something in the news, really, really important, because that way you can have that honest conversation and explain why it is that something might be troubling you, because sometimes children don't think in the same way as we do as adults. So I think that's really important. And I think key for us is also reminding them that if there is anything that's worrying them, that they talk to someone, they talk to their parents, or they talk to another trusted adult, that they share that worry and really kind of make sure that they understand that they won't get blamed for stuff which makes them feel worried. We want to help and support them. And I guess that then links to being really clear about who they can report to, especially if there's something they want to report to the police, or something that is maybe content which could get removed or might be illegal in any way. And I guess practical steps, probably what we'd all say is have a family agreement, agree the times, what we're doing online, make that an agreement as a whole, so actually it feels like it's not just about picking on one child or the children, but we agree all of that together. And then for younger children, thinking about parental controls and how they can help to limit the content and help them to navigate that space. A bit like with stabilizers on the bicycle, is actually they navigate those spaces sensibly and carefully as they learn and grow in their resilience and confidence in what they're doing online.
Thank you. I think the family agreement's a really good idea, and it's something that I'm going to try out with my own children. And that leads quite nicely into our second question, which is about this period of lockdown. And as children are at home, most of them are at home at the moment, and children are generally spending more time online, whether they're doing schoolwork or leisure activities. How can parents keep their children digitally safe? And we're going to go to Sarah from Breck to answer that question.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, a lot of what I would have to say about that is echoing what Samantha said just now. I think this is a really tricky time for all of us. As parents, we're all aware that all of us, including the children, are spending more time than usual online, possibly too much time online. Not all time online is the same qualitatively, of course. Like some time is spent doing really good, useful things, growing things. Other time is spent just playing games or social media. And I think, to echo what Samantha says, it's really important to mold yourself into the person that your children will come to if something goes wrong, rather than the person who's sort of wagging the finger or telling them there's too much time online, you spent too much time, you turn that off, do something else, go outside, which creates a kind of a block. And what you want to do is create a connect, so that, sit down with them, play the game, have a go at the app, be rubbish at it, make them laugh, just make them feel like you're not on their back all the time about it. And at the same time as you're doing that, so you're making a good connection with the child, you're also getting to see, how have they set this up? What are the apps? What does that mean? What's a party? Who's in the party? How does that work? How do you know all these people? Do you know them in real life? But you can do it as a question that is not threatening and not aggressive and not nosing into their business. You're just a bit clueless about the software, or whatever it is. And that way you'll learn a bit more, and you can maybe ask them, does that setting sound safe to you? Is there a way that you could be any safer? Or do you think, what if someone else came into this party? How would you know about them? Which is just a really good way of getting children to think about what they're doing when they're going online, what the potential pitfalls are, and not just think it's all one big gaming thing. And yeah, you might meet a creep or something, but you could just not talk to them. Just to be a little bit more smart about it all. Because we are worried that during this period of lockdown, this is the perfect opportunity for groomers, which is what the Breck Foundation mostly focuses on, to start making these connections, to start building these trusting relationships with children. And we do fear that once lockdown has lifted, or more of lockdown has lifted, that there'll be an explosion in grooming offences, because they're using this time to build up the connection with children, and then, you know, as soon as, hey, lockdown's lifted, let's go and meet, let's, you know, I can show you those things I was talking about, or and it's a very vulnerable time for children as lockdown lifts, as their world starts to change once again. So we're really keen on focusing on that. So build the connection now, so that when things start to go wrong, if they do, on whatever level, they know they can come to you to talk about it.
I think that's really useful to bring that issue of after the lockdown and what might have happened, to sort of bring that issue into the forefront of teachers' minds, so that, you know, as schools begin to restart, that teachers are talking to the children about what's happened when they've been at home, and perhaps relationships that they've made with people online. I think that's really helpful. Thank you. And Samantha, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, just to pick up on that, two things really. One is around the keep talking, but also, I guess, in that, keep talking about the challenges, because for us as adults, we're having challenges with all the time we're spending online, how it feels for us. And it's a great opportunity actually to share that together, to say, well, what do you find difficult, or what are your friends finding difficult? What challenges do they have? One of the things we found with a lot of the young people we've worked with is that actually talking about friends is often an easier way of talking about some of those more tricky issues than trying to make it personal. And the other thing is also, we talked about trusted adults, and I think one of the things which is coming through from professionals at the moment is a lot of those trusted adults aren't there anymore because they're not necessarily in school. So help them to identify who else they can talk to if they don't want to talk to you as a parent or a carer, whether that's Childline, whether it's an auntie or an uncle, or somebody else who actually they would talk to if they had, you know, had that opportunity or have that worry other than parents and carers. Because if you're all in the house together, probably the last person sometimes you want to talk to is the person who you're in that house with. So
yeah, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our next section, which is focusing on social media apps. And there are many different apps and all different types of websites and software that children engage in. So we're just going to explore some of the issues in this part. So the next question, I'm going to ask it to Andrew, and it is, despite the majority of social media apps having a minimum age of 13, primary children are accessing them on a regular basis. What advice can you offer teachers around keeping their pupils safe on social media?
It's a really interesting challenge, this one, isn't it? Is that you know, many of us are well aware of the fact that young people are accessing the apps well before the age ratings. And of course, the age ratings aren't clear fundamentally. They're often based on in US law around 13, but some of them are 16, some of them are 18, some of them will drop down if you have parental consent, whatever that looks like and however that works. And of course, we had this fantastic idea of age verification coming through the UK the last few years, which sadly has stopped as a result of change in governmental direction. We're still looking forward to the online harms paper having a consequential impact in a positive way too. But for now, we're still in this kind of limbo period where it's possible to access those services. So what we say to teachers is absolutely try and avoid the use of don't. So if you're saying to kids, don't do this, generally that's going to encourage them to go and just do it anyway. And it's about teaching young people and children about how the different ways that they can access services and the implications of accessing those services. So a very strong point is to the opportunity that you have as educators, for those of you who are educators, to develop a curriculum around this. And looking at the UK Council for Internet Safety's Education for a Connected World framework is a great start point. And what we've done at Southwest Grid is convert that into a set of teaching resources called Project Evolve at projectevolve.co.uk. That gives you a whole series of actual teaching activities with resources, with worksheets and lesson plans that you can deliver to support that learning for the young person. You're important in that role. We talked about that already in terms of trusted adults as their teacher. The ability for you to have honest and open conversations with the young people really, really helps them in understanding the implications of what they're doing when they're accessing those social media apps. You know, we can't stop them from doing that. It's possible to lie about your age still and get access to those apps. So it's a much better position if they understand that once they join those apps, they have got some level of cognitive skill and awareness about what it is they can and can't and should and shouldn't be doing in those services. Final point to make is, of course, is this is all in the hands of the parents. We, the parents, give the kids the devices. We're the ones who facilitate the access, and often, indeed, in my own circle of friends, we are the ones who are creating the accounts for the children. So that comes back round to that point of actually educating the parents, which I know is a real tension for schools. You know, we're paid as educators to teach the kids, not teach the parents. And in this space, we kind of have to do a blend of the both.
Just to say, there's a question that I can see that Rachel's asked to do with resources, and I'm delighted to tell you that we're going to have a section about resources and presentations that you can share with children in school and parents at the end. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up. Okay, so specifically looking at a couple of the apps then that children are using. According to the media, TikTok is the world's most downloaded app, with 800 million using it globally, and most of the users are children. What are some of the issues children have faced when using this app, and what advice can teachers give to parents? And I'm going to ask Carolyn and then Sarah to respond to this question, please.
So morning everyone. So TikTok is a really interesting app. It's like it's easiest to think of it as a mini YouTube, where you can basically use it to create short form video. They can edit it and curate it and post it online and share it, and people can comment on the video underneath, and then they can communicate through the app as well. It used to be Musical.ly, which was a lip syncing app, so it's born out of that, and as a consequence there's quite a high profile of younger aged girls on that platform. It seems to be particularly of appeal to those. Minimum age is 13. You do get one chance at putting in that you're 13, so if you download the app for the first time and you put your genuine age in, it won't let you do it again. And TikTok have tried to do a number of things to try and address some of the issues that they face. The sad fact is that whatever app or whatever place that children congregate, bad actors are going to sadly follow. And I think, you know, whether it's TikTok, whether it's you know, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, I think all of the platforms face the same sort of issues, that they are essentially a place where young people congregate. So the good things that TikTok have done is that they have restricted live streaming. So it used to be that you could, once you had an account, you could live stream with anyone. You now have to be 16 to live stream, and you have to request access, and you have to have a proof that you've kind of create good content that warrants live streaming. So you have to be a content creator if you like to have access to that particular service, which is a great start. They've got restricted mode, which allows you to filter out more adult type videos, but as with all tools, it's not 100%, so parents and teachers shouldn't rely on just putting restricted mode on. It won't filter out everything. They've got privacy settings, which again we would say for any child using or young person using social media app, do spend the time to get familiar with the privacy settings. Most more responsible app providers have a raft of different types of privacy settings that are available for young people and for all of us to use to keep ourselves safe. So it's got a whole heap of sort of restricted mode, privacy settings. They've introduced a couple of new things. So there's a family pairing mode, which allows you to link your adult accounts to your primary accounts, and it allows parents to control what videos are posted and who the videos are shared with. They've changed their gifting policy so that you have to be over 16 to gift virtual gifts to people, which again is another one of the tools that people can use to incentivize young people to change their behavior. So that's a good thing that they've done that. And then the final thing that they've taken the bold move, which is to stop direct messaging for anyone under 16. So from now on, they're rolling that out as a feature that you can't, although you can post and share and people can comment, you can't then effectively start a dialogue with any of those people that have commented. So I think, you know, in summary, TikTok is one of any number of different apps that young people will, as Andrew said, probably use before they are 13 or try to use before they're 13. And I think, you know, I go back to something Samantha said at the beginning about the biking analogy, is when your child is a toddler and you sit them on their first balance bike, they've actually got their feet on the ground. They've got the helmet on their head, they might have elbow pads, you've got hands on them, and they're in a space in your home probably where they're trying the bike for the first time. And over time, as your children sort of grow and they get mature and they develop their resilience and their critical thinking skills and their judgments and so on, all of those things fall away until they're off down the road and you don't know where they're going, right? So what we've got to be sure that we do is, as influential adults, whether that's parents or educators, is really support children in help, you know, like we would any other issue where they're developing life skills. It's a step-by-step process. You know, the worst thing in the world is we as parents facilitate the tech to our children. They don't go out and buy the phone, we buy it for them. And actually in doing that, we need to make sure that we're giving it to them set up in a way that works for them, that we've given them the rules that we want them to behave by. We talk by the frameworks, you know, and slowly but surely as children develop and gain that experience, then we can start lifting it off till that they very much have their own life and private privacy as they should. So
thank you. Sarah.
Yes, thank you. I think that's really useful, what Carolyn's saying about the sort of positive aspects of TikTok, because you're right, we do hear a lot about, you know, of horror stories about TikTok, and it is true. I totally agree. It's just the app of the moment, in the same way that Fortnite is currently, or kind of was sort of sliding a little bit now, but was the game that everyone liked to demonize. It doesn't really matter what the apps or the games are. Kind of the rules are the same, which again comes back to, how connected are you? Do you really know what your child is doing on TikTok? And by way of example, I was in a school recently where the head came to me and she said, "You are going to talk about TikTok, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, because that's what everyone's using." And every primary school I go into and I go, "Who's on TikTok?" Like literally, I can't talk for the next 2 minutes because there's uproar. They can't stop talking about it. They're so excited. And she said that they discovered that there was a girl who had been posting life hacks, which is one of the things that the kids like to do. So, which is basically sort of top tips or clever ways of doing things. And this girl was posting life hacks, and she actually posted a way to remove her bra without showing what was underneath. And this was her life hack, and she'd filmed it and she'd put it on TikTok, and she thought she was really clever, and she got thousands of followers and comments. And she was 11, and her parents had no idea that that's what that she was doing, that she was in her bedroom. They knew she had TikTok, but they didn't know exactly what she was following. And it only came to light because a school friend of hers sort of said to their parents, "I don't think she should be doing this." And then it came back to the school. And then, of course, then they had a big conversation about how to navigate TikTok, the kind of things that are acceptable, you know, doing silly dances, the kind of things that are, you know, not so great, and the kind of things that are absolutely no, we should not be doing this. And that is just about having the conversation again, whether we're parents, whether we're educators. It's about, you know, what have you been looking at today on TikTok? Oh, is that, oh, silly dances? Okay, that's fine. What else? They're not necessarily going to show you everything, but you can get a sense of the kind of people that they're following or that they're looking at, or that, and where they can lead to. Because quite quickly with TikTok, you can end up in an area that you don't want to be. There's a lot of sort of self-harm things that can come up quite quickly depending on how you're searching. So again, it's designed for older children, younger children are using it, so it just is common sense that you should be there at their shoulder, just checking how they're using it and the privacy controls. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you. I think that's really helpful to give a kind of balanced view of that app, rather than, you know, sometimes we hear, as you say, the negativity about these things, often in the press and other places, but it's really good to hear as more of a balanced view.
Wendy.
Yes.
Sorry, Wendy, I think that's a really good point actually you just pulled up at the end there, that we're probably not going to get an opportunity to mention again, is the impact of press on parental views and perspectives on this. And in fact, as ourselves as educators, the press present one version of the story, and it's really important, using our critical thinking skills, that we gain all the information before we start talking about these. There are two sides to every story, and as you've heard there, TikTok have done an awful lot recently to change their settings and approach in using their app. It's worthwhile highlighting, by the way, you can view a TikTok video without having an account, just by the way.
And the other question in this section was to do with the House Party app, which is another video sharing app, popular with secondary children. It's become popular again, perhaps since the lockdown. And Samantha, what are some of the issues that young people have faced using this app, and what advice and support can you offer?
Yeah, House Party. I mean, it's had a resurgence. It came out about a decade ago, I think. I remember talking about it a long time ago. I guess the same issues that we've all been having with video conferencing, because House Party in a way is just like a video conferencing tool. So some of the issues that we've seen or heard about tend to be that people have joined the party without being invited, whether that's, because they found out how to get in, or the rooms haven't been locked, or people are trying to hack their way into things. So yes, same with any live video in app, those risks of seeing something you don't expect to see, people joining those chats who you don't want to be there, and I think the features around locking a room and only allowing those selected people in, just like we have on Zoom, on GoToMeeting, all of those things are really important for us to be talking to our children about, because they may not realise, as some adults don't realise, that some of those settings will help us to have that safe space, really. And I guess also with younger children, like we were saying with things like TikTok, it's not really aimed at younger children. So if they are wanting to use it, that we should be doing that with them as parents. So that's, again, a safe space, so that they feel that's something we do as a family to keep it safe. So we haven't had many concerns around House Party, but we're seeing some of those general ones around video conferencing in general.
Thank you. And there was one question that came in from Rachel that we can just pause at this second just to answer. Any of you feel free to chip in. And she asks, is there a link between hacking and grooming? Question.
So
yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, from our point of view at CEOP, so obviously we're focused on sexual exploitation. We haven't seen any of those links at the moment. We keep a monitor of those things, but there's no clear indication from our intelligence that is something that happens.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would back that up as well. I would say the same thing. I mean, obviously we're a grooming safety organisation, and it is strange how often the two get conflated. So children particularly, when I'm asking them questions about their online safety, they all mention hacking. They all think hacking is the thing, and I don't even know if they fully understand what that is. But that's the word that they've heard. That's the word that gets thrown around a lot. So they tend to assume that that's the sort of the thing that's the most dangerous for them. But yes, as far as we're aware as an organisation, it's not a particular connection.
It's almost like, excuse the analogy, but it's almost like for hackers, it's a bit more of a thrill seeker sensation. So it's more like the flasher in the park than necessarily the person who's trying to groom someone. So it's a bit of a crude analogy, but I think that for many hackers, that's kind of what they're seeking, that thrill rather than that relationship. Sorry, Carolyn.
Yeah, one thing. So we did some research at the end of last year with the University of Kingston around children with vulnerabilities, because we were seeing patterns around children that had offline vulnerability. So if they had SEND or were in care or were a young carer, that they were more likely to experience online harm. The only thing I'd say on hacking is that if you have a child who's saying their accounts are hacked, I would treat that as a bit of a flag that their online life is such that it might begin to be exposed to other online risks if their account is being hacked. Because what we see is, once you've, in that research, what it said is, once you've experienced one online risk or harm, you're more likely to experience a basket of them and suffer a number of different things. So I would very much treat, if the kid's coming up and saying my account keeps getting hacked, I'd sort of be asking a few more questions as to why that might be the case, because for me that would be
I think that
Yeah.
I think that's a nice link to the whole tip of the iceberg side of things from a safeguarding perspective. If a child is coming up to you and disclosing something that may seem relatively innocuous or may have caused limited amounts of harm at that point, it's still worthwhile exploring that further, because actually there could be a whole set of stuff happening under the surface that we're just not aware of. I guess there's only one possible link I can think of with hacking, and it depends upon what you mean by the word hacking. That's the important distinction. But I guess the sextortion side of things, where somebody may compromise your webcam, capture images of your webcam, and then attempt to bribe you with those, that may be a link between hacking behavior. But as I say, it really depends upon what that young person is meaning, or indeed you, Rachel, are meaning by hacking. Because that can be a DDoS attack, that can be a dark web thing, that can be getting somebody's password. And if you look at the NCSC, National Cyber Security Centre's advice and guidance around that, actually sometimes young people are committing a crime under the Computer Misuse Act, which might be categorised as hacking, but seen as innocuous, harmless fun.
Just before we move on, Michael's asking Andrew about a framework that you mentioned as a good place to start at the beginning when you were talking about Project Evolve. And could you repeat the name of the framework, please?
Sure, I'll write it in the chat window. It's the Education for a Connected World framework.
Yeah, and thank you for asking that question. At this point, it's important to say that all of the resources that are mentioned and others that are available, I'm going to post them on the ComputerNet School website, and links to all of the resources that we've mentioned, and they will be available on the CAS forum this afternoon. So you can look forward to having a look at those in more detail and seeing which ones that you'd actually like to use in your school. We're moving into the next section, which is all to do with supporting parents, and I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to summarise the first question, which was what parents are most concerned about at the moment. There was an online safety at home campaign that CEOP ran, and they had 300 parents that responded. And as a parent myself, I think I can agree with some of the findings of that about the positivity side of things, with family having more time together at the moment, you know, in this kind of lockdown situation, but also the concerns of juggling working at home and your children doing work online, and then spending hours perhaps also then staying online, you know, on gaming sites and things. And as a parent, you struggle with that. And so that's going to lead us into, we're going to jump to question 8, which is, as a parent, you often feel guilty about letting your child play on a device for a long period of time. In the current climate, where a lot of children are accessing not only their work online that they've been set, but they also want to use a device for gaming, they can end up being online all day. What advice can you offer for getting the balance right with screen time? And I think that's a useful question anyway, that it's more important even at the moment with the situation that we're in. So I'm going to ask Andrew to respond to that, and Carolyn has also got some things that she wants to raise. So.
Yeah, by all means, do jump in. I guess it's a really tricky one. I've got 2 kids at home downstairs at the moment, and I'm up here. Am I connected to my screen all day at the moment? Absolutely. And if I turn around to my employer and said, I'm really sorry, but under screen time regulations, I can only spend an hour a day connected to my screen, I think I might suffer a little bit of a consequence on my from my employer. You know, so we all spend time on screen, and there has to be that distinction between what we mean by screen time. Andrew Shabilsky from the Oxford Internet Institute is doing some fantastic work around this area. Really looking into the current research, and very much the jury is out on screen time. Again, this harks back to my previous comments about press stories. The press are really good at sensationalizing screen time in particular, and making us feel that we are doing terrible things to our children, and that we're being really bad as parents. And there's a real balance to be struck here. You know, if a child is spending inordinate amounts of time connected to one particular aspect of a screen, be it a game, be it schoolwork, that is not healthy behavior. It's not healthy for their physical health. It's not healthy for their mental health. In today's society, given where we are with lockdown, we've got to be a little bit more open with that and a little bit more flexible with that. We're all spending more time on screens, and that doesn't have to be bad. I was watching a BBC piece just yesterday, and this is also shared by my colleagues. Actually, playing games can be really good for shared ownership, for reducing isolation, for connecting with others, and for increasing togetherness. But that has to be balanced out. You know, if your child or a child that you were working with was reading Chaucer to the exclusion of everything else, we would be worried about that child, right? And this is exactly the same thing, it's just a different way about it. So, you know, keeping the interaction high, keeping the conversations going, like we said repeatedly throughout this morning. You know, there's the scientific evidence is not clear cut that increased time on screens is causing a mental health crisis in our young people or causing a physical detriment. It's that there is not causation, there is correlation. So in the sense that we're seeing more issues and we're seeing more screen time going up, but that doesn't mean the one and the other are actually causing it. So I think one of the things I want to try and do as a dad myself, talking through you to other parents, is to just try and calm down a little bit around screen time. You know, just you know, get that sense of proportionality, get that sense of balance. Don't beat yourself up about this, okay? Because they are incredibly stimulating environments, and we know that there are psychological elements behind why us as adults and the young people are compelled to be in those spaces. So, you know, just allow that a moment to expand and not beat yourself up about it, but do keep an eye on what your kids are doing, because there are both positives and negatives of being that. I know that that's not clear cut enough for you. I know that that's not necessarily going to give you, you know, that one liner that you want to give and share with other people. But I think that's realistically where we are with it, unless anybody else wants to jump in and say something different.
Yes, I think that's really helpful, really, really helpful. Carolyn, did you have anything to add?
I mean, I'd echo everything that Andrew said. I think it's absolutely spot on. I mean, I've got twins that are 11. Screen time rules have gone out the window. I'm trying to work, teach, you know, become this magical homeschooler overnight. How I'm meant to do that with a full-time job, I'm not sure. You know, hats off to teachers, newfound respect. So I think it is really, really difficult. I think, as Andrew said, don't beat yourself up too much about it. I think the thing that I would just say, a couple of things. One is, do think about what your children are doing. So think about the lens of use rather than time. So if they're online and they're learning, creating, they're sort of diving into personal interests or life skills or whatever, fantastic. If they're developing skills for communicating, social skills, so gaming was mentioned, you know, there's nothing wrong with a bit of gaming online, and particularly games that talk, you know, think about strategy games and sort of having to work together as a team. That's really good. Where parents, and we should be more focused, is sort of minimizing that passive, you know, one way, what parents talk to us about mindless scrolling with the finger, you know, that's where we want to sort of spend our time and energy, sort of trying to minimize that. Normally we'd be saying have a framework, gone out the window, have the rules, gone out the window, recognize this time will pass. A couple of things that I would say: try to avoid using screen time as a reward. I think that it's a bit like using food as a reward. I think it has the potential to set up an unhealthy relationship with screens, and means that screens are the be all and end all, and that's all I want is the screen. And then just really make sure that screens aren't interfering with sleep and physical activity, sleep particularly. I mean, you know, screens in bedrooms is sort of a good idea not to have screens in bedrooms, and not least of which because as children, there's constant pinging of notifications that sort of are disrupting them, and the lure of the handset is quite compelling.
Thank you. There's some really, really useful tips there. I'm going to try those myself with my own children, so thank you for that. We have a question, an interesting question from Holly. She says 96% of our families are families where English is not their primary language. Do you have any specific tips and ideas around this? So engaging with online safety issues with families who don't have English as their first language, I think is the question.
Just quickly, at internetmatters.org, we've put a new translate function onto our website. So the whole, you can pick your language, you have to scroll down to the bottom, but once you've selected it, it recognises you and will therefore serve up pretty much everything that's in Internet Matters in a different language. So feel free to use that.
That's really helpful, thank you. I wasn't aware of that, so thank you for that. We did have a question about privacy settings, but I'm conscious that time is not being kind to us at the moment. So
Wendy, can I just, before you move on to that one, just say that the Better Internet for Kids portal is the European Safer Internet Centres portal, and that has multiple European language resources available, written in country for that particular culture and context.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. So I was just going to say, if you are interested in guides for parents for supporting them setting up their privacy settings for their children, then there's lots of different things that we have available. Internet Matters have step-by-step guides, and we will put links to those on the CAS website, as I mentioned earlier. And also South West Grid for Learning and the UK Safer Internet Centre have Facebook and Twitter sites where you can post questions. So just to draw your attention to those. The next section is about supporting children during this period of lockdown, and I really wanted to get to this question because I think it's so important. We mentioned earlier on about a child's trusted adult, and we know certainly because of recent news that broke in the press recently, that some children may no longer have access to their trusted adult because of the situation and all the issues that surround that, and the increased danger that they could be in. How can teachers tackle this issue, and what message should they be communicating to the most vulnerable children in their school at this time? Sam, if you could respond to that, please.
I think this is repeating what we talked about earlier, is sort of helping children know where the alternatives are. So whether that be Childline, the Mix, other helplines which are out there for very specific places, that maybe there are teachers available for those kind of more welfare matters, because for some schools obviously it makes it really difficult. Some have been really good at sort of still having their safeguarding leads available. But I think really it's just about letting them know there are still loads of people out there who can support, and giving them access to that information which they might not have thought about before.
Thank you. And just generally, when teachers are speaking to parents, what are the key messages that we want them to be communicating to children? Sarah, I'm going to go to you for this question.
Thank you. Yes, I would say one of the things that I see quite a lot that troubles children is the fear of what will happen if they speak up. And I think it's really important to emphasise that they will not be getting into trouble for revealing things that they've accidentally come across online, or that someone's contacted them and told them not to say anything. It's really emphasising that basic safety message that you can speak up. You're not a grass, you're not a snitch. It's about protecting yourself and your friends from harms that can happen to you out there online. And that comes up again and again. And I talk particularly about the fact that once you know, that awful feeling where you're holding something in that is troubling you, and how that's diminished as soon as you start to talk to a trusted adult about it, how that diminishes it, and that adult can help you solve the problem, and that the power that person or that thing has over you starts to dissipate the moment that you're talking about it. And I also, for the younger children, I use a lot the power that they have in their finger, and I do the little finger thing here and say, look, you know, whatever you see online, whatever's happening, you have maximum power in this finger. Turn it off and you go and talk to an adult. You don't have to sit there being terrified at the screen, or feeling upset and worried and scared. Use the power in your finger and press that off button and go and find someone and talk to them about it. And I see them when I'm talking about this, I see the sort of primary school ages, the younger ages are all sitting there going like that and thinking about it. And I think it's just a really cool reminder. Oh yeah, I can use my powerful finger. I don't have to sit here and put up with this. And I have power.
That's a lovely idea. I think that's amazing. And I think I can see that young children would you know, take that idea on board with the finger very, very easily. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. The last two sections, we're looking at how your organisations have responded to this COVID-19 situation and what's new, really, from your organisations. And I'm going to ask Sam, Andrew and Carolyn to answer this, because there's been lots of new things that have come out, which the teachers listening to this may not be aware of at the moment, and they can obviously share them with the parents in their schools and the children. So Sam, do you want to bring us up to date?
Brilliant, yes, definitely. So at CEOP, we've been running what we call online safety at home campaign. So every 2 weeks we've been creating activities for each of our key age groups based on existing resources parents can do at home. So we send them out to our ambassadors. Parents can download them directly on the website, but they contain 15 activities. So the idea is it's a short 15 minutes where they can bring up some of those key messages, and every 2 weeks now until the end of the term.
In case you didn't catch everything she was saying, there was a slight delay, unfortunately, when you were talking. So I'm just going to quickly recap that.
Did I freeze?
CEOP has an online safety at home campaign. Every 2 weeks, they're releasing these new home activity packs with 15-minute activities for parents and carers to do with their child. And there are short videos and help sheets as well. So do have a look at those. Again, we'll include the link for those on our website. Andrew.
Sorry, Sam. Thanks very much. Yes. So we've been doing a lot of things at South West Grid and the UK Safer Internet Centre around engaging with governmental departments like the DFE, DCMS and the Home Office, just to support their response under the lockdown in response to coronavirus. We've also been producing a huge amount of guidance. If you go to the southwestgridforlearning.org.uk website, there's a coronavirus page there. And there's also a Safer Remote Learning Hub on the Safer Internet website that collate together a range of different materials from other sources. But at South West Grid, we've been really keen to produce useful guidance around video conferencing services, around professionals. And there's one that we just released recently, looking at the return to school and the implications for that. And one of the things we're very keen to highlight, and it kind of flows on from previous question, is around the potential for a backlog of child protection issues that you may well encounter once you return to school, because they're being contained at the moment by children's inability or lack of desire to contact that adult. We've also made available our tool Whisper. Whisper is an anonymous reporting tool that's now available for free for any school to use. Whisper gives you the ability to talk directly to a child anonymously through a web platform to respond to a concern that they might have. It's a really, really good way of adding an extra layer of contact to those children who might be feeling vulnerable, threatened, or indeed at risk. And they can still raise that with you and tell you who they are if they want to eventually. All our helplines are still operating: the Professionals Online Safety Helpline, the Report Harmful Content platform, and the Revenge Porn Helpline. Situation is, broadly speaking, normal, although there's a slight change to the RP helpline. Our demand for our services has never been higher. The Revenge Porn Helpline is now seeing a 150% increase on the demand for our services. The caseload is just exponentially growing as, sadly, victims of domestic abuse are being subjected to non-consensual image sharing, and that will clearly extend to young people as well. We're just not seeing that yet, and that's why we're flagging up that concern for when we return.
And Carolyn.
Yeah, just quickly, so we've created a hub at Internet Matters called Stay Safe, Stay Home, which has a bunch of resources on it designed to help families navigate their way through lockdown. So how to set up devices safely, so really core basic stuff around parental controls and privacy settings. Some new content around connecting socially for young people, so particularly for, you know, the preschool play date, or the you know, in my son's case, you know, youngsters thrust into the world of video conferencing before they were probably ready for it. And then how to use tech positively, how to use tech well, some suggested apps for education, for mental health, and for physical well-being as well.
Thank you. We're going to move to the final section, which is highlighting resources. I think we'll focus on any new resources that are coming out or that are due to come out in the next few weeks or coming months, because the people listening won't be perhaps be aware of those. So let's finish the webinar by just taking a moment to discuss any new free resources that you'd like to highlight. If we go to Sam first, please.
Yeah, so although not necessarily related to digital parenting, next week, if anyone is in secondary, we're releasing a resource called Send Me a Pic, which is all about sending images. It's been a long time coming, so we're very excited, and we know that lots of secondary schools are thinking about their sex and relationships education at the moment. So it's been designed to sit alongside that. So for any of the secondary teachers out there, keep an eye out. If you're not on our mailing list or an ambassador, then you can just log on to the website and create an account. But yeah, we'll have that resource coming out, and it's aimed at having those discussions about image sharing, consensual, non-consensual, some of the challenges that brings up. So that's the one to look out for.
Brilliant. And Andrew, you mentioned Whisper. That was very interesting.
Yeah, I'm really keen to make sure that schools know about Whisper, so it's going to get another mention now, because it really is a way of young people being able to get in contact with an adult at school. Please go and register for the tool. It's free at the moment. Go and have a play around with it, how it's going to work for you in your setting, and give children the opportunity to have a voice with you. It's so important that the well-being and making sure that those young people can flag up anything to you. The guidance on our website is being updated. We're keeping it up to date, and we're making sure that it's relevant to you. I mentioned Education for a Connected World framework, and that's in the chat window. And I also mentioned Project Evolve, which are really valuable resources to get you started with educating children and people about online safety risks. Just by the way, if you haven't found it, testfiltering.com checks your filtering and sees how good your provider is, and can tell you a little bit of whether they filter against the counter-terrorism and sexual lists. Very interesting if you're in your school setting, and indeed when you're in IKEA, like I was a few weeks ago, and tested, they were good.
We've got some questions here about links for the Southwest Grid for Learning resources, and also about the Project Evolve resources. When will they be fully resourced? I think we'll respond to these questions. I'm just bringing them up. We'll respond to these questions
Sure.
on the CAS page, because
Project Evolve is being developed. We've got funding, another 18 months.
Yeah, I do want to give an opportunity to Sarah and Carolyn just to respond to that question, and we've got about 6 minutes left. So, Sarah, if you want to mention anything new from Breck.
Thank you. Yes. One thing that actually I didn't flag up originally was we do have some new SEN resources coming out about Breck stories, which we are going to be able to take into schools. So we've been able to, it's done in the style of a cartoon book. It's beautiful work, which someone has been working on for us. I don't have a release date for that yet, but that is a new resource that's going to be available, because we've been aware for a while that we need to work harder on our ISEN offering. So that's quite exciting. But something I'd really like to flag up, that we have an extension to a project that was ongoing. So we have funding from the Sir John Cass Foundation to come into schools in London, so inner London boroughs. We can come and present our usual presentations free of charge to a whole school environment. So right from parents, teachers, governors to all the children. secondary and primary. And I'm the main lead on that, and I need to, obviously we haven't been able to do anything over the last sort of 4 months or so, get any bookings in, but we're starting to take bookings again for the new academic year, so from September onwards. So if you or any of your colleagues are in a school that is in any of the inner London boroughs, please get in contact with us, because we need to use up this funding. There is a time limit on it, and we're desperate to come in and talk to as many children as possible, as quickly as possible after schools start taking children back in, because that is going to be the key time where everyone's going to desperately want to get out and run around and do all the things they've not been able to do, and we want to help them stay safe. So please, you can find out more information on our website, email our admin address, our office address. That'd be brilliant. Thanks.
And Carolyn's been waiting patiently.
Thank you. So yeah, so everything, all our resources are at internetmatters.org. It's all free. A couple of things I just wanted to mention. One is we will be shortly releasing the first report from this year's cyber survey, which is a survey of, I think it was 14,000 young people aged 11 to 16. We'll be doing a report on sharing sexual images, so that'll be the first report out in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We've done a big project around creating some resources for parents and young people themselves with special education needs, so that will be launching sometime in June. And the final thing I would say is that some of our brochures, when we do get back to being actually in school, you can download some of our brochures from South West for Learning, so feel free to go to their website and see what you can find there.
We have a few minutes left, and we have a question from Neil, and I'm going to put this to Andrew because it's about the Whisper that you mentioned, and he asks, is Whisper suitable for primary schools?
Absolutely. Yes, Whisper is suitable for any school. I can think of no reason why you wouldn't use it. I realise clearly with the younger children, then they're not going to have the ability to necessarily write their own message. But for Key Stage 2, and particularly upper Key Stage 2, it's a fantastic way of getting an additional layer of communication in place. You might have parents who want to use it, after all, to flag something up as well that they're aware of. And it just gives you that anonymous route.
Yeah, and then some questions, Sarah, regarding the offer that you made to schools. Mary's asking whether what you were talking about and presenting could be done online, for example, using a platform like Zoom, because she's just raising the question about whether schools will let people like yourselves in September, because it's never changing picture, isn't it? I mean, it's all going to happen at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely looking into that, Mary. I mean, that's something that we obviously realise with all the bookings that we're making. We realise that nobody really knows what's going to happen yet at the moment. But that's something I'm actually testing out this week with some friends, just to see how well the presentations go online. And I can't, ask me after I've done it, but I can't see any real issues, because you can share screens, you can still take questions. It would simply require a sort of an adult in the room who could perhaps channel the questions to me. But yeah, we're hoping that we will be able to do that, and that will also open up, now that people are more used to it, that will open up to us being able to present in Inverness in the morning and Land's End in the afternoon, which would be fantastic. Yeah, that's something we'll definitely be looking at. But if you have an interest at all, then please do get in contact with us and we can talk about it.
Thank you. Can I say thank you to all of those who have joined us for this webinar today. A special thanks to our panelists. That's thanks to Sam from the NCA CEOP, Sarah from the Breck Foundation, Carolyn from Internet Matters, and Andrew from the UK Safer Internet Centre. I think it's been a fantastic webinar and been extremely useful. I've certainly learnt a lot. There's lots of tips that I'm going to try out with my own children. And so thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you at a future Computing at School event. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
That's weird.
Oh.
Yes, that didn't